next storyteller, his name is Joe. The story title is Rocky versus Indiana Jones. So whoopee for Joe!
I had closed the Venetian blinds and turned off the lights in the entryway. I cracked open the Venetian blinds to look out, and that's when a beer bottle came flying through the window pane, right past my ear, over into the living room behind me, and crashing into the glass table that belonged to my girlfriend's roommate. How did I get into this situation? These types of things never happened to me. I was not Indiana Jones. I was more like Rick Moranis in Honey, I Shrank the Kids. Let's go back 2 months in time. It was springtime in 1983, and this was a really good year for me. I was a PhD student at UCSB studying engineering. I had completed all my coursework, passed my qualification exams, and was well away on in my research. I had also started working at a technology firm up in Goleta at the time. Life was good. I was making money. I lived off campus over by Dos Pueblos High School in a converted garage. And I was close to the high school, and I would go up to the track every day and jog. Well, one day, while coming home from the track, I heard a voice call out from behind me and say, "Hey, Joe!" And I turned around, and there stood this lovely, vivacious Latina lady with a very big Great Dane German Shepherd mix of a dog. And I stared at her for a moment, and with all the suave and sophistication I could muster in the moment, I said, "Do I know you?" Well, it turns out that she lived in the neighborhood, and her sister had pointed me out at the track and said, "That's Joe." And so she introduced herself to me and walked me home that day from the track. And we had a quite long conversation, but kind of being a nerd and an engineer, I was slow on the pickup of social interactions and didn't realize that maybe she wanted to talk to me additionally. Well, fortunately, I did not follow up on that opportunity because over the next couple weeks, I noticed that she was at the track 2 or 3 times, not only with her large dog, but with an equally large guy who seemed to know her well, very well. And I assumed this was her boyfriend. Well, where I lived in this little converted garage, it was okay. It had a stove, it had a refrigerator, but it lacked one basic element. It didn't have a bathroom. And that means every time I had the calling, I had to go outside, go with my key through the kitchen, and then into the living room. And there were my landlords, a very nice elderly couple, usually sitting there watching TV. And they didn't need to know my business every time I needed to take care of business. So now I had the opportunity to move out into a 1-bedroom apartment about 3 miles away. The night before I was to leave, I had packed up and I was ready to go. There was a knock on the door. And there was Sylvia, once again. And she asked me to go out to a movie with her. And I went out to a movie with her. There was no mention of a boyfriend, and we had a really great time. Well, a few things about Sylvia. She had moved into the neighborhood about a year and a half ago, and she was very different than me in many ways. She rode a motorcycle, and I rode a bicycle. She drove a classic Saab. I drove a 1973 rusted-out Vega. She had lived many years in a commune up in the Bay Area. I lived in a converted garage without a bathroom. She had a Mexican heritage, had traveled in Mexico extensively, and spoke Spanish. I liked eating chili rellenos. And her ex-husband was an artist and a painter. I could draw a stick man. Well, she was such a free spirit, and I really enjoyed her. And we started dating over the next month. We had a lot of fun. We went out to dinners, to movies, many places. Had a great time. But then one day, we were at a restaurant eating lunch, and her upbeat demeanor became very serious. And she said, "Joe, there's something I have to tell you. My ex-boyfriend, Bill, has been asking around the neighborhood about you." At that moment in time, I still remember to this day the chill that went down my back at that time. But you know, I didn't live in that neighborhood anymore. And besides, hormones and springtime romance can do amazing things, and I quickly forgot about it. That weekend, her roommate was away, and she invited me over for dinner on Saturday night. We had a great dinner, and for dessert, we retired to the living room and were on the couch. I do not know exactly where we were on the whoopee meter, but in baseball parlance, I'm guessing we were somewhere around second base. Suddenly, Sylvia stopped playing baseball, sitting up with a start, and said, "Oh my God, he's here." Apparently, she recognized the characteristic sound of his old beat-up VW Bug coming out in front of the house. Moments later, the wooden gate to the backyard slammed open, and in walked this 6'2" hulk of a guy. Without pausing, he walked directly over to the window, which was right opposite the couch, placed his hands on the window and his nose, and looked directly at me and said, "I see you." Oh my God, I was in trouble. I had not bargained for this at all. He quickly left the backyard then, and then went out to his car and started driving back and forth on this little narrow Goleta street with his VW Bug. After a few minutes, he felt that this wasn't enough expression and started honking his horn as he drove back and forth on the street. Wanting to amplify his message, he then took the car and drove it up onto the overgrown grass of the front lawn. Got out of the car, kind of leaning out of it, honking his horn, and was yelling. This is the time when I had turned off the lights and closed the Venetian blinds, and this is when the beer bottle came flying through the window. After a few minutes, he backed his car off the front lawn, and it left an indentation on the lawn like a dog leaving his mark. And he continued to drive back and forth on the street, honking and yelling out the window. And then he left. Almost immediately, the phone started ringing. Now, for some of you that grew up in the cell phone ages, this was before the cell phones, and the only place he could have been was at the gas station at the end of the block at the telephone booth. And he started calling. Sylvia did not have an answering machine. So the phone would ring and ring and ring and then stop. And ring and ring and ring and stop. Well, after a while, a policewoman arrived at our door. We hadn't called her. A neighbor had called in a disturbance. And while she was taking down our information, the phone rang, and she answered and it said, "This is Officer so-and-so." And Bill immediately hung up. The officer suggested to Sylvia that it would probably not be prudent that night to stay at her house alone. So she tried calling her sister and brother-in-law, who lived right around the corner. They weren't home, so we decided that she'd come back to my apartment with me. Well, just getting out to the car was a challenge because we thought he was still in the neighborhood. So getting out to the car, we were looking around to see if he was there, and then getting into the car and driving I was looking to see if the headlights were behind us. Couldn't tell. We got back to my apartment, and I let Sylvia sleep in the bedroom, and I slept on the couch. And by sleeping on the couch, I mean I lay there with my eyes wide open, wondering if Bill knew where I lived or could figure it out. And at 5 a.m. in the morning, there was a loud thump on the front door. It wasn't Bill, it was the LA Times. Well, Sylvia told me a little bit about Bill after that. It turns out that Bill liked to work out a lot at the gym. And he liked weightlifting, and in particular liked boxing. He liked boxing. And he had anger management issues. Bill had relayed a story to Sylvia about a time when he had stopped behind a car at an intersection, and that car had taken too long. And he took his VW Bug, and with his Beetle, pushed the car out into the intersection. Bill was also a graduate student at UCSB, studying psychology. He wanted to be a clinical psychologist. At the time of the incident, Sylvia and I had never achieved 100% on the whoopee meter. But thinking back on that springtime romance, there were at least 2 times, I believe, that we did, and I brought photographic evidence here today to share with you about this. These are our 2 adult children, Kate and Matt, and that was 35 years ago. Well, Bill did not go away quietly. For the next several weeks, he would drive past Sylvia's house several times a day, and she knew this because she worked at home and could hear his car and see it from her window. And like a jack-in-the-box, he popped up 2 or 3 times over the next few weeks when we were together. And there was one more incident of a police coming to our rescue. And but the scary excitement of that time was worth it. Now, after many years, I've wondered why I stayed with Sylvia during that time. We hadn't been going together that long. It was only a month or so. And I was kind of a nerdy engineer. It would have been much easier to cut and run. Well, Sylvia remembers it a little bit differently. She doesn't remember that I was just some nerdy engineer. She thought I had a bit of daring in me, a little risk-taking in me, and that I was a little bit like Indiana Jones. And like Indiana Jones, facing a little danger and getting what you want. So if there are 2 lessons out of this that I'd like to share, one is when your partner thinks that you're a little bit like Indiana Jones. And 2 is when you yourself think that you're a little bit like Indiana Jones. Thank you.